This training describes the reaccreditation process specifically for our public, private, Canadian, and our network accreditations. The basic concepts, although some of the details might be different, the basic concepts will apply to after-school accreditation and our military and family readiness program accreditation, and it generally will not apply to organizations seeking Hague accreditation. I'm going to do a quick review of some of the basics about COA accreditation. Then I'm going to talk about things to consider and think about as you are getting ready to re-enter the accreditation process. And then finally, depending on how much time we have, I'll be going into some detail about some of what's new here at COA. Now, I'm assuming that since you're taking a re-accreditation training, that none of you have been through, and most of what has happened over the past 3 years will be new to you. So I'll try to cover some of those topics and some of those things. The first thing I want to do, okay, is look into the feedback box on the right side of the screen underneath the list of names and tell me yes or no. Has your organization already begun the reaccreditation process? All right, we have a clear majority of participants who've responded. So many of you are still not in the process, and I think that's good. Again, this is some of the material is sort of designed for you to start thinking about prior to actually entering the process. So I'm going to clear the feedback window, and here's another question. Were you the person whose job it was to get your organization accredited the last time? Another way to ask this is this your first time being your agency's primary contact? So anyway, so were you the person? And it looks like we mostly have new primary contacts. Looks like the vast majority are. Okay, so let me just say then that this is not going to be a real basic COA 101. There's not going to be a real overview of the whole accreditation process and those kinds of things. There is a training on that if you really need the basics. But so I'm going to assume, though, that you've got some familiarity with who we are and how this is all going to work. But again, if you have questions, please let me know. All right? Once you're accredited, you have an expiration date, right? That's 4 years from the date on which you became accredited the first time. Then you enter in sort of this maintenance of accreditation phase where you are basically maintaining your accreditation. 18 months prior to your expiration date, you'll get an email from us stating that it's time to, go through the process again. And then great majority of organizations do decide to go through the process again. So just in case you're not aware of this, and I'm assuming most of you have not got this letter, or maybe you have and you're beginning to haven't formally entered the process yet. But that's something to keep your eye open for, and it will go to your, I think it'll go to your executive. And if you know for a fact that this letter is going to come soon, I would just give him or her the heads up. You don't want to delay re-entering this process. There's a lot of work to do, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But so the sooner you jump on this, the better it's going to be. Okay, so let's do some review of some of the COA basics. Okay. We designed this process, and one of the reasons why organizations undergoing COA accreditation are in process longer than other accreditors, CARC, JCO, to be a couple of examples, is that we really designed this to work with you from the beginning of this process through your accreditation decision. So we really try to take a facilitative, collaborative approach to working with you. Okay? Another important thing to know, once you decide to get COA accredited, you're committing to bring all of your programs and services through the accreditation process. Now, there are some exceptions if you are getting accredited using the Hague Intercountry Adoption process or the after-school program process. Those are program accreditations. But for everybody else, you're pretty much bringing all of your programs and services through. Your accreditation, once you receive it, is for 4 years, okay? And you can see the length of time that it takes on average to go through the process. 12 to 18 months, and it does move, for most organizations, it's closer to 18 months. So that's when when I talked to you about a moment ago about if you're getting close to that 18-month mark, give your executive the heads up, because you want to get on this right away. Since you get the letter 18 months before your expiration date, and it takes most agencies 18 months to go from start to finish, I really think that it's really important to get a jump on this. And when that 18-month mark hits, be ready to get to rock and roll on this and hit the ground running. And that's why some of the things we'll talk about today can maybe give you a heads up and get you prepared to start the process and not have to do some of the preliminary thinking. I like to also think of this process as an open book test, right? And you have all the answers. There really should be no surprises after the site visit about where you are and what your ratings were. You know what the standards are. All the evidence is listed for you, all the different things that you'll need to produce or be prepared for once the review teams come on site. It's easy to find out information about how the scoring system goes. So everything is there. There's no surprises. There's nothing hidden. And so if you're diligent and do your homework and really, give yourself enough time to really do a thorough review, you should know exactly where you stand by the time the site visit comes. And it's also the case, and I'll talk about this a little more in a moment, that the site visit isn't a one-time deal. We come in, your site visit occurs, that's it, right? But that's not the case. You have multiple opportunities to show us that you've implemented the standards, and we'll talk about those just in a moment. But I do want to remind everybody that with the 8th edition standards, the focus is on implementation. Okay, we used to use, like other accreditors, the language of compliance. You comply with the standards, but we've shifted that emphasis to the term implementation, and that has very practical, definition. And the best way the best example I can use would be if the standard says you need a procedure for conflict of interest. Having a document, a policy, and procedure that meets the letter of the standard is not going to be enough for you to pass that standard. The reviewer is going to come on site, and they'll have read that document before they get there. But what they're going to do when they get on site is they're going to interview stakeholders and staff and find out, is it part of how you do business now? There are questions on the stakeholder surveys related to conflict of interest. So really what the site visit is about is verifying implementation. And in the bigger picture, what that means is the standards have become part of the way you do business on a day-to-day basis. And that's really what the goal is. As you embark on this, I think, and I've alluded to some of this a moment ago, I think it's really important that you thoroughly understand the process before you get into it, or certainly as soon as you can. One of the most important documents to read is the accreditation guidelines, okay? And that is available through the websites. and we'll look at the website a little bit in coming up in a few minutes. But that may be the single best, most important document to prepare you as far as giving you a sense of what the big picture is and how this process will proceed. Okay, I wrote that for the most part with the intention to make it, try to translate sort of technical language as much as I can into English. So it's designed to try to not be overly jargon laden. So have any of you actually seen the guidelines yet? You can do a yes or no now in the feedback. Okay, most of you have. If you have any comments about them and their usability, please let me know. Right now, we have just posted an updated version of the guidelines. And if you go to the website and click on the guidelines link, the PDF document opens. So for the time being, the guidelines will not be an integrated set of web pages. It'll be a downloadable PDF, which some people have been asking for anyway, because they don't want to have to look at the computer screen for everything they do. And being able to print it out means you can take notes on it, etc. Take it home if you read it on the subway if you're in New York, etc. And Susan, yes, the guidelines right now, the basic set are for the same document covers public, private, and Canadian, and if you are possibly getting accredited as a network, also that's the case. There are separate guidelines for after school and military and family readiness programs. So I would encourage you to take a look at the newer updates. It's not substantially updated. Some of the time frames have been modified since last summer, and we've added information about the NA process, which stands for not applicable. We integrated the information about focused reaccreditation in there, as well as the information about network accreditation. So read the guidelines. Make sure you understand in that you've probably taken my Get Organized Creating Accreditation Work Plan webinar, how important I think a work plan is. And so get a handle on, make sure you firmly understand what is due and when it is due. Okay, I'll go over that in a moment. But never lose sight of that. Sometimes it does get away from people, and all of a sudden it's a mad scramble when a lot is due all of a sudden. To the extent that you can do it, try to get understand how standards are going to be rated. Understand what the 4-point rating scale is. Understand all of the different elements. What's the fundamental practice standard? All of those things. So that's an important thing early, I think, to understand, and it can help you too toward when things come together, when push comes to shove. If you have to start to prioritize amongst tasks that are still unfinished, knowing what's mandatory, what's not mandatory, and how that all works can help you decide, well, we're going to focus, we have only 2 weeks, and we're going to focus on this area, and we'll let this other area slide because it's not mandatory, for example, or we know we're going to have more time after the site visit, et cetera. But these are kind of things, decisions you can make, and having information and knowledge will help you prioritize if you need to do that. I'd recommend understand how decisions are made, what happens after the site visit, as well as taking advantage of training and technical assistance that may be available to you. We're uploading and adding new tools all the time, and I know that can be confusing because there's already a lot of tools. Now, I have a document that I just did within the last week. Basically, it's my recommendations for basically recommended tools and resources. And it's geared toward tools that are helpful to you while you're undergoing the self-study process. So I'm going to make a note, and it's not in the tool search yet, but I'll send that as an attachment to everybody who take this webinar today, and we'll talk about. I mean, actually, maybe I should ask you now. We did recently do some changes to the tool search on the public website, and I don't know if any of you have tried to search for tools through the tools search functions. I know it can be a little, I don't know what the right word is. It can be a little daunting, I think, sometimes. And that's one of the reasons why I created this recommended tools and resources tip sheet, so that at least in the time being, until we sort some of that out, you can get direct access and without having to do a complicated search to find things. If you have any issues with the tools, I would recommend you send us an email through our contact COA, and we can gather data and get people's feedback about all of these things, because the website is relatively new, and we're still happy. We want your feedback about what works and what doesn't work. Okay, that being said, new slide, right? This is a timeline that extends from the time that you receive your accreditation decision through the expiration date. You can see it covers 4 years. And I just wanted you to have this. I don't think there's a need to go into this in deep detail, but just so if it helps for you to visualize this process and where you are in the process, it might be helpful. I sort of have like a big version of this up on my bulletin board that I printed out, and it helps me, think about it and talk about it, etc. Now, the PDF version, Stephanie, that I had mentioned was for the guidelines. If you want a PDF version of the standards, well, let me just show you. Opening up our website, I'm going to the standards. I'm going to choose the private standards. I'm going to choose the first section, ethical practices. I'm opening up ETH 1, if it will open. So you should see a page of standards here. Now this window is live website. So go to the scroll bar on the right side of the window and scroll to the bottom. And after ETH 105, you'll see it says PDF download. What this will enable you to do, if you click on that, you'll download a PDF version of the ETH Ethical Practices Standards, the whole section. Okay, so we don't have a single set of all COA standards that's available in PDF. But if you want to download the full section, this is where you go to do it. Now I know some of you may already be working inside your MyCOA portal, and when you're working inside the portal, you are right, you do get a tailored, a customized version of the standards, which, for example, if you're looking at ETH 105, you'll see this standard specifically applies to networks, agencies getting accredited as networks. If you're not a network, which most of you aren't, then the version of ETH in your portal will not even show up. You won't even see ETH 105. Issue is the customized version of the standards inside the portal, you're not yet able to do PDF downloads. So if you want a hard copy, and I would if I was in your position, I would print this one out, and then when you're inside your portal, you take note of you can do a comparison, and I mean, you can pretty much see, you're not a network, ETH 105 isn't going to apply. Make some note on your hard copy. But hopefully in the future, we'll be able to generate PDF versions of the customized standards inside your portal. So here you can see again, you see the timeline, and I don't know if I have a larger version of this. But I did actually send you the slides, and as opposed to PDFs today, so it would be possible if you know how to do this. When you open the slides up, if you wanted to, you can copy the actual image from that slide out and put it on another piece of paper if you wanted to blow it up or something. But anyway, understanding the process. This is related to knowing what's going to happen when. And this covers the 12-month average period between when you officially start the process, meaning you sign your accreditation agreement, and your site visit occurs. So these are the primary process-related milestones in that period of time. Now, I wasn't planning on going through the details here. You have the slide. You can look at it. Some of the time frames have shifted slightly since the last time you came through this process, but take a look at it, and if you have questions, you can let me know or talk to your coordinator. I will talk in a very short moment about the preliminary self-study, and you can see that's right smack dab in the middle of this list of process milestones. First, though, I wanted to talk about giving you multiple opportunities to show you where you've implemented the standards. The primary is always going to be the site visit. That's when the reviewers are there, walking around your programs and interviewing staff and observing. You're probably all aware, however, that before the site visit, that you'll be submitting a fairly significant amount of documentation, which is called your self-study, and that's submitted at this point. It's actually going to be 6 to 8 weeks before your site visit, and that gives peer reviewers an opportunity to really become familiar with your programs and how you work before they ever get on site. So that's really pretty important. So first major opportunity is this self-study, second is the site visit, and the third, which should never be overlooked, is your response to the site visit report. COA does not ask agencies to be perfect, and related to that, most organizations still have work to do after the site visit. I don't know what the percentage is anymore, but last time I looked, 70% of organizations following the site visit still had to do some work. So what happens is we send them the site visit report after the site visit with specific recommendations about what you still need to do before you can get accredited. You get 2 to 3 months to do that. So don't overlook that. This is part of the process. Having things to respond to following the site visit is not a mark of we didn't do good. Okay? I mean, if you had 100 standards out, you didn't do good. But most agencies have a few things they still have to focus on, and that's okay. That's part of the process. You also see in the front end the preliminary self-study, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. And then on the far right says deferral. Once you respond to your site visit report and the Accreditation Commission looks at all the evidence and makes a decision about whether you're accredited or not, if they decide you still need to do more work, what happens is your accreditation decision is quote-unquote deferred. So they can give you another month or 3 months, in some cases even 6 months, to continue working. So that would be another opportunity to show us you have implemented the standards. Any questions about this? Let me know, please. Now, there's a new process milestone called the preliminary self-study. Now, most of you went through this process with the milestone timeline, right, where at the end of month 1, there are certain things you needed to submit to COA. At the end of month 3, there were certain things you needed to submit. we have sort of eliminated that now, and we focused it down on 4 key documents: strategic plan, PQI plan, risk management policies, and your behavior support and management policy. These will be due to COA 4 months before your site visit. So make sure, I mean, you'll give this date, and I'm sure you'll have it on your work plan, but just be aware of that. This replaces the milestone timeline, and we're really going to only be asking for these 4 documents. Obviously, you're going to want to submit drafts of these that are fairly, that are fairly complete. But if they're not, obviously, don't miss the deadline. Submit something, and then talk about where you are with your submission. Okay. Now, this will be also. This has been some confusion about what these are. This is part of your self-study. So once you submit these documents, they automatically become part of your self-study, which will be due in another couple of months after the preliminary self-study. There is a tool called the preliminary self-study FAQ document. Okay, so that's findable in the portal. And actually make a note. That might be something I should send that to you too. I'm going to send it. I'm going to send that to you also. And just so you have it. So it pretty much answers every question you might possibly have about this, about the preliminary self-study. All right, getting to the next section, getting ready to undergo the reaccreditation process. First thing I want to say, if you are interested in knowing exactly which standards have been updated since the last time you got accredited, there actually is no way to get that information. We don't actually track it and keep track of it. We have the standards updates page, and this is a page on the website, but it only goes back so far, okay? So really the only way, if you really want to stay really on top of these updates in between accreditation cycles, is to visit the updates page on a regular basis. Now, the current website only has updates going back to August when the website was first when it was first put up. But the old COA standards website still is up because some agencies are still using it. And so that has a list of updates that go back much further. So if you're interested in the updates, the combination of what's on this page and what's in the old COA standards website will give you probably about 1.5 years worth of updates. And then, for some, it's not, they don't care. I mean, they're going to do a review of all the standards anyway, so if it was updated or not, whatever. But some people do want to know. So that's what you'll need to do for the updates. Now, we have a number of sponsors, and you can see the list here. And if you are a member of one of our sponsoring organizations, there's a 25% discount on your accreditation fee. Now, I want to bring this up because it may be the case that you're not a member of the sponsor, but possibly the reason you're not a member of one of our sponsors is because of the cost, the membership fee. So it might be worth a sit down to say, all right, we've been wanting to join the Child Welfare League of America, but the fee we thought was, more than we could really afford. However, when you take into account the 25% discount you're going to get by joining it, there may actually be an economy here that's worth considering. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind. And if you're not part of your organization's leadership, you might want to at least communicate that to them. Another thing to think about is, are there new recognitions that apply to your organization potentially? So we have recognitions of various sorts in virtually every state now. And this is a list of recognitions we have in Ohio. And you can see there's quite a variety of them. So if you are an after-school program that's contracting with the Bureau of Child Care and Development, or a contractor under the Department of Mental Health, or the Department of alcohol and drug addiction services. There is some recognition, meaning there's some, well, recognition comes in a variety of flavors, right? So let's just take a look. After-school programs, tiered reimbursement typically means that accredited agencies will get a higher reimbursement rate. Under mental health, deemed status typically means if an accredited agency is relieved of some measure of regulatory oversight. I mean, it varies from state to state. And it's also not just necessarily COA here. This is typically accreditation recognition, so it would include COA, CARF, Joint Commission, NACI, and that's pretty much it. But it's worth looking at the website to see if there are new recognitions related to any of your programs, okay? Now, this I wanted to bring up because sometimes this is confusion here. If you have accreditation from another accreditor on any of your programs, and actually these are the 3 accreditors we would recognize, you may be eligible to have that program carved out of this process for us, and realizing a fee reduction because we wouldn't so we're not going to review that program. We're not going to include the budget for that program into the fee calculations. Most of you, but people have said to me, "I've never heard of that before," and they have gone through the process having do the program. So in case, I wanted to mention that. Now, I would recommend is someplace before you start this process, or if you've already started it, and this still might be useful to you, sit down with the people who were involved last time. If you're the new coordinator, and the old coordinator is still there, at least sitting with him or her. But it's worth before you enter this program, I think, sitting down with all those players, and for example, anybody who might be on your accreditation oversight committee, and questions. Right? How was our process last time? Did we have any stumbling blocks? Were there standards that were a big problem for us? Did we have trouble with staff taking vacations, inappropriate times? What was our experience with COA? Did we like our coordinator last time, COA coordinator? Just sit down and think about this and anticipate that any problems that you had last time, and see if they were already addressed, or if there's something you can so you know ahead of time what issues may come into play. One of the biggest ones are often around staff. 4 years is a long time, and a number of staff may have turned over. So it's a good idea, especially for key positions. Who is still here? What role did they play? Okay, and even beyond, senior positions, who was intimately involved? Who really got involved last time? Okay, who stepped up? Were there staff who just really got into the spirit of this and really helped out, pitched in? And maybe, for example, this time through, you might want to include participation in the accreditation process as a professional development opportunity. Or even, one agency told me that they have a an internal leadership development program, because they're pretty big, big enough to have one. And if anybody wants to, part of that program is having middle managers take responsibility for significant parts of the accreditation, like responsibility for a section of standards or something. So think about ways to provide incentives to people to do this work. But again, think back, who's there, what Lou's key step, do you have really important, people in really important positions that are brand new? Find out, have they ever been through any accreditation? Are they familiar with COA? And another important question is, do they understand what they're going to need, how they're going to need to be involved in this new process? Are they going to need a new HR director is going to have to do the assessment of HR practices against the standards, right? They'll be significantly involved in the on-site interview process. Board members, the board is really important in COA standards. So thinking about that. And in fact, once you enter the process, there's probably going to be a lot that the board will need to do. You know, any new policy that's developed will need to be reviewed and approved by the board. So you might want to also be thinking about that. How often is our board going to meet? Are there any scheduled meetings? Will we need to have the executive committee of the board available to approve certain things until the full board meets, those kinds of things? So there's some questions to think about. And finally, so let's bring our attention for a moment back to the slide because I'm going to ask a yes or no question. Are you, or is anybody on your staff, a COA peer reviewer? Lots and lots of no's. I don't have to probably stress the point too much that having a COA peer reviewer on staff is a huge benefit and creates a big advantage for you, okay? And of all the ways that they can be an advantage, I mean, the two biggest are being able to conduct a mock site visit for you that really will reflect what happens when the peer review team conducts a site visit. But also, I mean, I think one of the hardest things for you to do is prepare your staff to be interviewed about implementation when they're on site. And interviews are a huge part of the on-site process. So having a peer reviewer is a huge benefit to being able to prepare for that on-site review. So I'm recommending you think about it. If you're not, if you're not in process now already, you certainly can inquire about if you can get one of your staff trained. The commitment, I think, is only one peer review a year, so it's not a huge commitment as far as how often you have to go out. But alternatively, if you don't have a peer reviewer and you're not going to get one, I would at least go over to our Who is Accredited part of the website and find out other agencies in your city, in your neighborhood, or if you're a Catholic Charities agency, are there other Catholic Charities agencies that have a peer reviewer that can lend them, they'll come over and they can do the mock site visit. They can maybe leave it too early and talk about implementation, how to prepare correctly, those kinds of things. Now, as you probably know, you will need to designate a single individual to be a point of contact with COA throughout the accreditation process once you officially begin. On our end, we'll designate a single individual to work with you. So all significant communications, once this process begins, will be one-on-one. One of the things the coordinators have told me that they would want me to communicate is that they often feel like the organizations don't actually use them. They don't call them when they have questions, and they get all the way close to the site visit, and there are some very basic, really fundamental things they didn't understand. So don't hesitate, okay? Ask questions. Don't assume you know anything. And better than just calling them up would be to email them, especially if you have a lot of different questions to ask. They don't know everything, and they need to often go talk to standard staff, they'll talk to me and others to get answers to some of your questions. Or they may talk amongst themselves. Sometimes we get a question we haven't heard before, so we have to get a little meeting together to discuss what the best approach is, and sometimes we'll even need to go to outside experts to see what the best way to interpret that or to respond to a question is. So email them first, and then they'll get back to you, and then they can make sure they can answer all of the questions before they do it. And this is just an efficient way to do it. Now, NA requests, the new standards, the process is a little different, and the best way to address that is to talk to your coordinator about it. We don't have the NA request form anymore, at least not in the same way we used to. So if you have questions about that, there is information in the guidelines about that. So that's the place to go for information about that. I hope this is so far has been useful information. I know for some of you it may be obvious, and others who are new to this have never really thought about this. So hopefully this is some of these preparatory discussion will give you something to think about, and that's going to be helpful to you. Now I'm going to talk about some of the things that are new. So first thing to know is virtually all of the documents you need to fill out, including your application, your program assignment forms, all of the self-study evidence is all now uploaded, to your ICOA account in one way or another. It's all, no more burning onto CDs, no more putting, tables of contents and links on jump drives. It all can be directly uploaded to COA through your My COA portal. The other thing I wanted to mention here is if you really liked your coordinator last time and you want to work with him or her again, you need to ask at intake. It's not going to be an automatic assignment. So if you want to work with your prior coordinator, you want to say something about that when you go through the intake process. We have a new website, and while I'm talking about it, have you been to it? I'm assuming most of you have already been there and rooted around. The URL, which I don't have on the slide, I usually do, is www.coanet.org. Okay, very, very important. This combines our old standards website with our marketing website and our information provision website. So I'm going to do just a fast overview of these drop-down menus. You see above the big graphic, there's accreditation, right? That will give you information about applying, eligibility criteria, some other, sort of overview information. The program drop-down menu gives you information about private accreditation, public accreditation. I don't know how much useful information is there, but it may be worth a look. The standards drop-down menu gives you access to all the major books of standards. Private accreditation standards, public accreditation, Hague accreditation, standards for military and family readiness programs, etc. That's going to be one of the biggest places, and that's where you're going to use this website probably primarily until you get into your portal. And even then, there's a lot of reasons to do some of the work you're going to need to do through this website. Training and resources, I'm sure you've all been to because you've signed up for this training. The tool search is something I would explore and learn how to use. Again, it's not the most user-friendly at the moment, but there's a lot of different tools that are available to you. Who is accredited? You see next to volunteers. That'll tell you state by state, and even in other countries, what organizations are accredited. This, in the end, what we're going to try to do is make this a more robust part of the website where clients and consumers hopefully will decide they want to use an accredited agency for their services and can come here and see who's accredited in their neighborhoods. And it includes contact information about your organization. It includes information about what services that you provide and that you're accredited for. So you might actually want to go there and see what it says about your agency. And certainly if there's anything that needs to be updated, please let us know. The recognitions drop-down menu will give you information about, in your state, who recognizes the Council on Accreditation. So again, we talked about that earlier. That can be very valuable. One of the biggest standards-related improvements, in my mind, is the fact that at every core concept, not only do you have the standards, but all the evidence for the core concept is listed along with the standards. Right? The old version of the standards, the 7th edition, you had to go. Actually, no, the old version of the 8th edition, up until this, there was a separate page of all the evidence, and it really created a sort of a disconnect, between the concepts of the standards and the evidence. So now it's integrated. So it'd be really easy, certainly when you're doing your self-evaluation about whether you meet the standards or not, to be able to easily reference the evidence. This is what a standards page looks like if you haven't seen it. This is the public agency standards. If you look on the left, you see the three main types, right? These are drop-down menus for the administration and management, service delivery, and service standards. Below that is some of the really good stuff, right? There's the accreditation guidelines. There's a link to the policies and procedures manual. And then you also see updates and glossaries and things like that. So, this is probably, if you're, to the extent you're using the public site for looking at the standards, that'll be where most of the useful information is. Now, a quick overview of the portal, if you don't know anything about it. And let me just ask again, everybody, are you inside this portal already? This is a more robust version of the old MyCOA that you used to have right before this new website came out. It's secure, so not everybody can get in. When you start the process, you'll have 3 free accounts, which means 3 of your staff will be able to have access. Additional accounts are available for purchase. It's not expensive, but there may be some good reasons you don't want everybody in your portal. There may in fact be some good reason why for limiting the people who can get into the portal. And you can just talk to your coordinator about what their opinion on that matter is. As I said, the version of standards you will have access to inside your portal is customized. So if you're not providing case management services, they won't even show up. I already talked about online submission of all your evidence and online submission of all other process information. So I think these are the real basics, the big overview. Now, everybody who starts the process currently, everyone after February 1st, will be using the portal. Okay, so that's not there's much. Some of you, I don't know if some of you are, but some of you, agencies that started between the 13th of last year and February 1st of this year were given the choice if they were already in process. Right now, everybody's using it, so just be aware that there is basic information available to provide an overview of how the portal functions. It's a slightly bit out of date, but it's going to be updated soon, and I don't know if that's available through the self-paced training portion of the training resources. I can send you a link to that if it's not. If you want to look at that and can't find it, just let me know, and I can send you a link to that overview training. Now, we're running a little late. Are you using the focused reaccreditation process? I mean, actually, before, let me just don't answer yet. I have to change. Let me just change this. A, B, C, or D. A, if you're using it. B, no, you're definitely not using it. Or C, don't know. Okay. Most of you don't know. It looks like a few of you know for a fact that you're using it. There's a lot of information about the focused reaccreditation process in the guidelines. And they include the eligibility criteria. And there's also a separate guide, which you can see here on the slide, download at the very bottom of this, the focused reaccreditation guide. Now, since I sent you slides, you have an active link to that guide. A couple of quick things. Again, this is not in detail. We don't have time to go into detail, but all the standards in the service sections will be included. There's no service standards that are excluded. But when it comes to the service delivery administration and management standards, there's approximately a 40% fewer standards that will be reviewed during this review. Now, focused reaccreditation reviews occur every other accreditation cycle. So this time, if you're focused, the next time you go through in 4 years, you will not use the focused reaccreditation process. This doesn't mean, however, that when you're preparing, that you can skip all those other standards. Your executive is going to submit a verification that the standards that were not being looked at are, in fact, still being implemented. And it's possible if the peers come on site and they see something of concern that's related to a standard that's not included in the focused reaccreditation process, they can, on the spot, pull that in, and now you're going to be reviewed for it. So just be aware of that. So, when you're doing your assessment, when you're doing your self-evaluation in the self-study phase, do a full complete review. You got a lot of time. You got months and months and months. Be thorough about it. You've already been accredited. Most of that documentation is already in existence. Ideally, it should be part of your procedures and policies manuals, and you should be up to date on those standards. But you do want to make sure across the board that you're meeting your standards. Okay. What's new in the standards? There are a fair amount of updates. At this point, if you've been through in the last 4 years, there's not a lot of PQI updates. So you're going to want to take a close look at PQI regardless, right? All of the standards will be included in the review, whether or not you are focused or not. And it's the most important section of standards we have. If you offer programs for persons with developmental disabilities, you may have used the DD supplement last time. That is no longer in effect. There are 2 new core concepts specifically for programs serving people with developmental disabilities. There's one in TS, TS5, and one in CR, client rights, a new core concept, CR4. So you might want to take a look at those. If you have any questions about them, you can ask your coordinator, or you can ask me, since I did the work to create those 2 new core concepts. Gov 2, there's a standard about stakeholder advisory groups that you want to pay attention to, okay? And without going into more details, you definitely want to check that out. The FIN standards have had a number of revisions. Most of the content is still there, but we shuffled some things around. So it's important that you take a look at that, especially if you don't understand our requirements regarding audit and finance committees. Additionally, if you are an FCC member or largely an organization that provides consumer credit counseling, a committee of credit counseling organizations who work with our standards department, and it's a number of new interpretations and standards that are not applicable for credit counseling programs. In addition, since the last time you went through, there may be several new sections of standards. So just as a heads up. There's also a number of new tools that have been developed. And here's just a partial list of them. And all of these, most of these are on the recommended tools on worksheet I'm going to send you. So take a look. There's a lot of new stuff, and it's designed to help you organize your work and help you just, get through the process in an efficient manner. So if you have any questions about them, take a look at them, and you don't know how to use them, again, feel free to contact me. Thanks for attending, and I do hope this was useful and informative. Thanks, and have a great day.